So when I came into this some years later, after the Bible school, went into a season of doubt and questioning God. There was something that I could never leave, and it was these experiences. Right. This feeling or this experience that God is near. I mean, from a philosophical point of view, I could question God. I could be angry, I could be bitter at God. And I could, from a logical view, ask questions. But there was something I could never question, and that was the experience of His presence. My journey with God really started when I was 15 years old. And I'm grown up in a Christian home. My father was a pastor in the state church. And so my parents were very active. And I knew that they knew Jesus in a personal way. And I also, when I was a child, had a clear understanding that I didn't knew Him in the same way. So I had a desire for many years to know God in this personal way. And for me, when I was a child, Christianity was just like a philosophical system. It was a religion, and I somehow wanted to be a Christian, but I didn't knew how to.
Yeah.
So I remember I was at a gospel concert once. There was like a festival, a Christian festival, and then a gospel singer, he asked from stage, if anybody wants to accept Christ, you can pray after me. So I prayed after him, but nothing happens.
Okay. How old were you at that time?
Like 13 or 14.
13 or 14.
And also once I read a Christian book, and then in the back of the book it said, if you want to accept Christ, you can read this prayer. And I read this prayer, but nothing happened.
All right.
And also I was confirmed when I was 14, and it's the time when you confirm you are Christian.
Yeah.
And you can either do it silently or say it in the church. And then I wanted to say it because I had a dream. When I say yes, then the experience will come. Then I will really know that I know God in a personal way. But nothing happened.
All right.
But then when I was 15, I think it was in 1991. So you can hear I'm an old man. I'm 47 years old. So it was during the Gulf War. And then I saw that in my hometown, I'm from Odense, there was a demo where people would demonstrate against the war. It would be like left wing, and other people who were against the war. They would meet on the town square. And I saw this demonstration, and I asked a friend if we should go. And then we, with very simple means, made some banners saying, Bush and Saddam Hussein, stop this war. And we did. And there were some people, I remember it was February, it was very cold. The pavement was covered with snow and ice. And so we were part of this, and there were some old ladies singing some peace songs. You know, these are songs of their own kind.
Okay.
But then the same morning, there were some Christians that were having a meeting in the streets, and of course we were from Christian background, from Christian families. We also went to a Christian school, so we thought, oh, this is good. They are doing something good. So we stood and listened to them, and then they invited us to a meeting this evening, and we went. And it was a slightly different meeting from what we were used to, because when people were singing, they were standing with their arms raised like this.
All right.
And we were standing and looking around. What is this? But at that night, both of us had an encounter with God.
So how was that? Could you describe how did it happen?
Very silently.
Okay.
There was just a small inner voice saying that this thing about Jesus is the truth.
All right.
And it was like God spoke these words into my heart, and it was like a seed that was planted. And I just accepted these words. I didn't have any questions. And I think from that moment, I accepted Jesus with everything that Jesus is. You know, some people say that you have to go through like 4 steps. You know, some people talk about 4 spiritual laws, and you have to acknowledge you are a sinner. You have to pray a special prayer of salvation. You have to go through some steps. But for me, it was just this very simple way, because I knew the whole thing. My parents had raised me up in the Christian faith. I knew a lot about the gospel, about the Bible. So I knew kind of what it meant, that I knew who, at least from a theoretical point of view, I knew who Jesus was. But it was just a seed planted in my life, and it was like a whole different experience. I mean, it was my life changed from this small seed, and church was a whole different thing. And this meeting was a totally different meeting. And then this group that had arranged this meeting on the street, they asked me and my friend to join them. It was a non-denominational group of young people from different churches that every Saturday morning would go to the streets and have a meeting where they would sing some songs and share some testimonies. And they asked us to join. I mean, we were only like 14 or 15 years old. But then we accepted. And then we were part of these meetings and also some prayer meetings. And then this small seed that was planted, it just grew very slowly. And then our faith became stronger. So this is my
That's amazing.
Story. But you asked, how do I see myself?
Yeah, who are you? As when I ask.
But I'm a new man. I mean, the Bible says that we are transformed, and we are created as a new man.
Yeah.
So that is actually who I am. My identity is actually that is in God. That I'm a child of God. Perfect. That is who I am.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I went. That I started with such a heavy question, because it is a thinker, right? When yeah.
I actually have a question, because you said like as a young boy you wanted to be Christian, and I think my curiosity is in how did you know you're not? You know, was there something clear about that period that you were like, you could see something in your father that somehow made you question what you had, or you made you want to have that? Like, what was your reasoning to feel that way, that like they didn't have that?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Okay.
Grow your brand with digital ad campaigns and social media content. We are a creative team that specializes on video communication, brand strategy, and productions. Sign up for a free business checkup meeting and speak to us for valuable advice and for the opportunity to partner with us.
And it's a very relevant question, and also a difficult question. I believe the tradition I'm grown up in is that, yes, you can be part of a denomination, but you have to come to a point where you accept Jesus in a personal way. This is what this is my family background. That and both my mother and my father, they can almost point to a date, or at least a season in their life, where they had this experience, where they came to know God in a personal way. So that is kind of what I was taught. But even though I didn't have this experience, still, as a child, sometimes I would pray to God. If I was feeling sad, I would pray to him, and then I would feel something. I would feel that God would come to the room and bring me comfort. But then after I was comforted, then I would forget about God and then just keep doing my thing. Yeah.
Right. So how was then the journey? How was the journey then continuing? You started to go to that new meetings, and so how was that? Did people from the church started to like lead you, or did you have to search for answers yourself, or how was that time?
Yeah, just being part of the fellowship, listening to this non-denominational group that went to the streets Saturday mornings to have these meetings. I mean, they were older than us. They were in their 20s, or some even a little older. Just listening to them, that kind of made us grow in our faith, and we were matured just by listening to them and being with them. I think being part of the fellowship. So that was kind of the starting point. And I also continued in my father's church, where my father pastored.
What did you do there?
I was basically just I was attending the Sunday services.
All right.
That's all.
All right.
It's kind of crazy that like some 20-year-old people have had such a big impact in your teenage years, you know. Just crazy to think about. Yeah,
and it was very interesting. We had we met some years ago. Like it was
really?
Before COVID. Then the whole or most of the group met, and it was very interesting also to hear their version of the story, because they were of course very excited that my friend and I came to this group, and we had this encounter with Jesus, and then actually after only half a year, then the group was shut down, not because of problems, but some people were moving to different places and so on. So, but they were actually afraid that my friend and we were going to lose our faith. So, but they could see that we are still Christians, and so they were very thankful that the seed that had been planted in us, that how God had used their group, that it stayed there and it continued growing also after we left this group. So, yeah, they were very thankful for that.
Are you still in touch with your friend?
No, we actually only some years after, then he moved to the western part of Denmark.
Oh, okay.
So, and I'm now in the eastern part of Denmark.
Yeah. So you guys just lost contact?
Yeah, okay. We have lost contact.
All right. Then you were attending your father's church, right? What happened after? Like,
yeah, then I was going to boarding school for some years.
Okay.
But I think what's interesting was that I came back, and then I attended a Bible school.
Okay, where?
It was in Odense.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about it, from if you look at my journey of faith, was that it was a very important season for me, actually in two ways. Because first of all, the emphasis of the school was on the Muslim world.
Okay.
So I was at the age of 18 and 19 when I attended this Bible school that lasted for 10 months. And a part of the school was that we went to Turkey for 2 months. Actually, it was a trip of 3 months. First 3 weeks to Budapest, where we met with other teams, and then we were sent out. Some went to Turkey, some went to Central Asia, and then after 2 months we came back and met in Budapest and shared our experiences, how God had used us, and how we had shared the gospel with people. But definitely God sowed some seeds in my life regarding the Muslim world. at that early stage. And I mean, these seeds just stayed there. Then at the same time at the Bible school, something difficult happened, because I was a little disappointed with some decisions that were made. And
in the school, or
in the school.
Okay.
And in hindsight, at the age I'm now I'm very experienced. Then I would just say, it doesn't matter. But for me, I was a little disappointed with some things, and it turned into some disappointments that I felt that Satan really could could attack me in these areas.
Yeah.
And it turned into a frustration and turned into doubt, where I started doubting God, questioning God, even questioning if the Bible was truth.
Okay.
So, and I would also add another thing, that before this happened, I had attended some Christian camps, actually within the state church, some charismatic camps. And they had it was really life-changing experiences, because God's presence was so manifest at these meetings. It was in the early 90s. And these meetings simply just changed my life, because being there, being 19, 20, 21 years old, and being in a meeting where you just sense God, this is real, and you have this feeling that God had taken over the control of this meeting.
Wow.
And this was such a good place to be. It just impacted me, and kind of created an impression of me that I could never leave. So when I came into this some years later, after the Bible school, went into a season of doubt and questioning God, there was something that I could never leave, and it was these experiences.
Right.
This feeling or this experience that God is near. I mean, from a philosophical point of view, I could question God. I could be angry. I could be bitter at God. And I could, from a logical view, ask questions. But there was something I could never question, and that was the experience of His presence. And always during these 4 to 5 years, there was a longing after God's presence. So, and then actually it's interesting, because then I had some menial jobs after the Bible school. I worked with the refugees within the Red Cross. I worked at a cafe washing the dishes, and also ended up being the manager of the people who did the dishes at this fancy cafe in Odense. And then I went to high school. And then afterwards, I went to university and studied a political science.
All right.
Which is it's a study where you have to read a lot. You have to read philosophy, sociology.
Did you enjoy that?
Very much.
Very much.
Very much. Finally, I felt that I have met some people that it was like my segment.
Yeah.
Kind of in the way I think I met, in the sense that I met some people that was thinking the same way as me, somehow.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, we were different in other ways.
Yeah.
But there were some common areas. So I really enjoyed it very much, and in encountering all these philosophers and sociologists and their thoughts about the world and the society was a great journey for me, because in my disappointment I had questioned God, and I realized that I mean, many philosophies, they are not grounded in the Bible. They are actually opposite to the Bible.
Yeah.
And then in the university, encountering these theories was actually good for my faith, because then I had to kind of, they were contesting my faith. And then what happened in this process, that I actually began coming up with biblical answers to all these questions. So a solution for me and a way of coming out of this season of doubt and questioning God was actually to study philosophers that were not, definitely not very biblical. So it was one of the ways that I came back to God.
That's amazing.
Interesting. Because especially with in regards to like philosophy and sociology in school, it was where I actually heard many people at that time, because we had these topics in school, in high school, and a lot of people, of course they were not Christians at that time, but they were maybe open for the idea. But after having those classes, they really decided, okay, it's pretty clear cut that God is not real, you know. And I've heard this from my classmates and so on. So it's actually a very interesting thing that with you it was like the other way around.
Exactly.
That happened.
Yeah, I mean, the Bible is in no way opposite to philosophy and to science. And of course, I was in the social sciences. So it is in no way the opposite. I actually think it's kind of above. Or at least you have, maybe I can put it that when you are a Christian, you know that you are very conscious about that this is a faith. And someone told me at the one of my co-students said that it was actually it was easier for me to study, because I knew what my my bias was. I knew that my foundation was the Christian faith, and then as at least one wanting to become a social scientist, then I would be able to have a more distant view of the things I was studying, and where some they would be very involved in what they were studying. It's a very we could speak a lot about this.
Yeah, we can. It's not a problem.
No.
So after studies, what did you do? Did you work somewhere else, or?
I worked a little bit for the Danish government. I worked in the Ministry of Education.
Oh.
And then soon after, I realized that this was not my calling.
Is that when you discovered, or like, is that when you started to work more with the Muslim world? That like I would like to.
I had known the Danish European Mission since I was young. Actually, my father, he received the magazine in the mailbox.
Okay.
So I knew the organization, and when I was young, I was actually a donor. So once in a while, I would send gifts and also receive the magazine. So I liked the work. So,
what is it that you do?
I work with the Danish European Mission.
Oh no! What is it that the Danish European Mission does?
Yeah, what we are doing. Our name comes from the Cold War. We were founded in '64 when the European countries, they were divided in an Eastern and Western bloc. And in the Eastern bloc, people were not totally free to practice their faith. For instance, it could be difficult even to get a Bible.
Okay.
Maybe on paper or according to the Constitution, there would be freedom of faith, freedom of speech, but in reality, it would be limited.
Yeah.
And it could be hard to get get a Bible. There would be official churches, but they would somehow be controlled and at least monitored by the government.
Really? Okay. That in Denmark?
No, in the Eastern Bloc.
Okay.
Like Slovakia,
okay.
Romania, Bulgaria,
right.
Poland,
Right.
Russia.
So you know this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, And I have always been very fascinated with the Eastern European countries.
Mm-hmm.
And it came after the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989.
Mm-hmm.
I was glued to the television during the fall of the Soviet bloc.
Why was it?
I was so fascinated with these people who had suffered for so many years under a socialist yoke. They didn't have the freedoms that we had in Denmark, but still, the people groups of the Eastern European countries, they survived through these difficult times. And then to see country after country where communism fell and people getting their freedom, it was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And also to see how people had suffered, because on the surface the communist states had tried to portray or create an image of things going quite well. But then when communism fell, you would see that in the reality, things might be worse than at least some of us thought. For instance, in Romania, there were state orphanages where you would see a lot of orphans living under very difficult circumstances. And I was very touched by this.
Yeah.
And also, it's from a church point of view, it was an open window, because then for some years the doors were totally open for the churches, both the existing churches that had been there, but also for other people to come in and share the gospel. And there was a huge openness, because there was like a vacuum, because for so many years the church has been suppressed.
Yeah.
So there was a hunger among people to talk about spiritual things.
So if we can go a little bit back, because I want to continue in this conversation, how did you get into that organization? Were you invited to work for them, or did you try to actually join them?
Yeah, as I worked in the Ministry of Education for some months and realizing that I didn't feel this is my calling, I just went into the website of a paper and saw there was a job advertisement.
What was
It was a vacancy for 4 months where the bookkeeper he was on leave, and then I applied, and then I got this.
All right. So you were bookkeeping in the beginning.
Yeah, for 4 months. And I already had a little experience with bookkeeping, so it was very good. And then I started to criticize some things they were doing. For instance, they had a website, but it was not updated as much as it could be. And they totally agreed. Yes, we need to work more with digital platforms. And that was back in 2008 when the internet had really started to grow. Also, Facebook was growing very much. Had started to grow in 2008.
So, what is the principle of this organization? How does it work? Or also, what do you do actually? Like, if you can give us a bit more like a practical, or not practical, but like a real examples in the world.
Now I'm the CEO.
All right.
So I'm of course in charge. So I work with many things like. I'm basically in charge of the communication, the marketing, the finances, and also the staff. And then, it's a huge task and it's a challenge, but very interesting. It's so interesting how to develop a work also to employ people and I'm very thankful to our board.
Yeah.
They and the cooperation with our board.
But what is it that the organization
is doing?
Does yeah.
Our focus or our goal is the same as during the Cold War.
Right.
It is to share the gospel in areas where it's not possible to do it in a traditional way.
Okay.
And with the traditional way, you could also say like in an open way. For instance, in Denmark, you can very openly share the gospel. You can freely rent a building or buy a building and have Christian services or share whatever message you want.
Yeah.
But in some countries, there are restrictions, or it may even not be legal.
Okay.
So these are the places that we like to work.
And how do you work in there? Like
we like to serve God's people there. We work with local churches there.
Perfect.
You
Try to help them.
okay.
And we have a servant attitude. We don't come with an agenda saying, this is how you should do things.
Yeah.
We ask them, we listen to them. What are your needs?
Right.
And can we meet your needs somehow? So this is how we go forward, trying to meeting their needs, trying to serving them and serve God's people that live in hard places.
Wow, that's amazing.
Where are some of the? Can you share a little bit? What some of the places that you guys are working with right now?
Yeah, we work in several countries. If we stay with the Soviet bloc, south of Russia, there are the stans, or some call it the Turkic belt. You can also call it Central Asia, like countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan. These countries, and so there are restrictions, but the church it is allowed to have a legal church. So we try to serve God's people there. For instance, we the Christians expect laws to be imposed where it is a requirement that the pastor would have a formal theological education, and if a pastor does not have a formal theological education, then the church will not be legal and it will be shut down. So we were approached by Christians who asked us, can you help? And first, their motive was just to get a formal education so they could, so that churches could be legal if such a law would come.
Right.
But then they realized that as we supported them having theological education, that it actually was a huge benefit for them in their ministry. Because, I mean, these are pioneer churches. These are very young churches that basically were started after 1991, when the Soviet bloc finally fell.
Was the Soviet Union also like having hold on all the Stan countries?
Yes.
All right.
Just like the Baltics.
Okay.
So by receiving theological education through you guys, they realized. I didn't catch what they realized.
Yeah, they. Thank you for coming back on track. Very good. They realized that theological teaching was a benefit to the ministry because they are so young, these churches, and many of the pastors, they were saved maybe like during the 90s, and some come from a very different background, like they were drug addicts or they were involved in mafia. Then they had a beautiful encounter with Jesus, went to a meeting where they were touched by God's Spirit, and their life was turned around. Then maybe they would go to Bible school for 1 year, and then they would become pastors. But being very young in faith and just having been to Bible school for 1 year doesn't mean that you are necessarily grounded in God's word and have a really solid foundation.
Right.
About some very basic biblical truths, like for instance, grace. Do you really know your identity as God's? That you are a child of God? Mm-hmm. Are you really certain about it? And they are being taught many topics like finances, church finances, about leadership, how to be a good leader, about ethics, counseling. So they become much more wise.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
For instance, with counseling, should a man counsel a woman, for instance? Should they be in a room that is locked, or is it wiser that it is a woman that counsel another woman, for instance? There are so many questions where you can, as a pastor, you can be very wise and smart and make some smart choices.
Wow, interesting. What other countries are you guys working with?
Yeah, I have. We have worked with a few countries in Asia. Just before I came here, I met one from Sri Lanka who is visiting Denmark right now. Mm-hmm. We work with an organization in Sri Lanka that serves the churches there. So it's like we work with church planting.
Oh, okay.
Because in Sri Lanka, at the moment, there are 25,000 villages where there are no Christians at all. There are no churches or even Christians.
Okay.
So, but there are church planters that go there to plant churches. And they will have support. It is not from us, but from another source. They will have support on a monthly basis for like 2 years. Mm-hmm. But then afterwards, they are basically on their own. And if there are only a very few church members, then how can the pastor feed his family? Yeah. I mean, the pastor needs some income
Absolutely.
For his family. So we have what we call a self-help project, where pastors are empowered to start a small business.
Wow. Can you tell us a bit more about that? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is. So, for instance, they can have a cow, and the cow can produce milk, and they can sell the milk, and a cow can have a calf, and when a calf is raised up, it can be sold at a good price. They can also start a small shop. They can have chickens. They can sell the eggs. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you guys help these pastors in these places to set up local businesses like this?
Yeah. And of course, it's not me personally who is, or the staff members at the Danish European Mission. We have a local partner, what we call a project partner. So they have, we listen to them, and then they describe a project saying, this is the urgent need right now. So they make a proposal for a project, and they actually have to answer a lot of questions, because here in Denmark we are raising money for this project.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, are you only racing in Denmark, or is it more wide?
It is mostly in Denmark.
Mostly in Denmark, okay.
We get a little bit once in a while from other countries. But our only focus is Denmark.
Mm-hmm. Super.
Yeah, so we have a form that they are filling out, and they have to answer a lot of questions. Also, we do a background check on our partners. Are these trustworthy partners? Yeah. Can they steward finances? Are they transparent with finances? And they also have to give account for how they how they use the money that we raise. We have a project coordinator that his job simply is to support our partners, also to monitor them and to help them monitor how they spend their finances. And so, because we get we receive the funds from our donors, so we have to be good stewards.
Absolutely.
And make sure that the funds are spent according to their purpose.
Do you then somehow do you reward the people that are funding somehow? You know, do you then invite them for some events and like show them this and this was done in this way, and we reach so many and so many people here and stuff like that? Do you do that, or?
Yeah, we do have meetings.
Okay.
Sometimes we have a magazine.
Okay, so that's the main.
Yeah, we also active on social media.
All right.
Like Facebook, Instagram, and a website. So what we do is, basically to give a feedback to the people, so they can see the effect of their gift.
Right.
They have given a gift, and then they can see what the fruit is. So it's both on from a narrative point of view. We get stories from locals who have received help, but we also try to quantitatively tell that, for instance, how many pastors have received self-help, how many pastors have received theological education, and to kind of quantify what the effect is of their support.
Right. And because so in one side of the world, you guys are giving theological education, and in the other side of the world, you are helping pastors to make businesses with cows and calves. You know, so how do you guys approach projects in a way that is that makes it so dynamic in your efforts to help local churches?
Yeah, it's a good observation you're making, because some ministries or organizations, they have strategically decided to focus only on one thing, for instance, media. Or some ministries may even focus only on social media, and that's it. So they are experts on social media. We, on the other hand, we are a supermarket.
Right.
It's like going into Bilka. You can buy furniture for your garden, furniture for your house. You can buy food. We have many things on our shelves. But that is kind of who we are. So in our shop, you can support many countries. And what we offer is the opportunity for people to support Christians that live in hard places, that are under persecution or discrimination, and help the Christian church be a witness, help it reach out, because our main goal is to share the gospel. So, for instance, with the self-help project, not only does it give a livelihood to pastors, but it also creates opportunity for pastors to get involved with the village, because the majority in the village may be very skeptical towards this church plant.
Right.
Because, we are not Christians here. We are Hindus. We are Buddhists. But then when they see the pastor working with his own hands, that he's doing working with agriculture or working with animals, or have started a shop, and see that he's actually benefiting the village, and they may be able to be in a contact. Then
they're more open.
Yeah, there are some. They have chances to see that he's a normal, and that he's a human being, and that he's not just some who is sent from outside or paid from outside, but he's actually part of the village life, and the church is contributing to the village, and also we are, and to stay in Sri Lanka, the churches can also be agents of change. Not only preaching the gospel so people are saved, but also like doing something good for a village. For instance, if there is no playground in a village, maybe the church can make a playground, so the children will have a more exciting life. Or maybe in these small businesses they're making, maybe they can employ 1 or 2 people.
That's really cool.
So you guys, so instead of having, because you mentioned it as a supermarket, right? But in a supermarket, when you go inside, there is already things on shelves that I can pick and choose, you know.
Yeah.
But the way you're describing some of the approach that you have, that you guys have, you know, would be that that you, I imagine, you know, this is my impression when I hear you talking, is that when someone get in contact with you guys, you try to listen what are their needs, and you craft a project, or you build together a project that makes sense with the needs of the area. Is that how it is, or is it a mixture of both things?
It's a very good question. You're asking very good questions. I mean, when I used the word supermarket, I was actually thinking about the Danish audience, or I would not audience, but our constituents, because it's basically them that are carrying out this work.
Right.
Because it's only because of the support of our donors that we are able to implement these projects with our local partners. So for them, it's a kind of a supermarket.
Right.
And for the people we want to help, I have never thought about it that way. I have never thought about it. But yes, we also may be a kind of supermarket for them.
Okay.
Because we listen to their needs and we support different kinds of needs. Is it help to start up a small business? Is it theological education, as I have mentioned? Is it translation of the Bible? That's something we also did during the Cold War.
That's
of course, we were the co-founders of an institute called Institute for Bible Translation that started in Stockholm in Sweden with an organization from Norway and an organization from Sweden. And this organization have translated the Bible into many languages. So, I mean, the spectrum of projects that we do is quite wide, and that is just how we are. So yes, you can use the supermarket term.
So for example, if there is a need somewhere, because I'm just so curious to understand how it works on a project management level, right? Because if you have, for example, wild thing happen, you know, let's say North Korea, there's some people running away from it, and somehow there is an opportunity to like get a lot of people out of a terrible situation. So you would, if that need comes into one of you guys' table, you know, because you guys are so flexible and there's many things you guys do. What would be the first step on a situation like this? Would you just call people from the area? Would you try to get a hold of some organization? Would you try to set up flight tickets? Like how would you approach it, for example, in a situation like this?
That's a very good question. I mean, the very most important question is who are we working with?
Okay.
I mean, we need to work with people we can trust, who are trustworthy. So what we do is that we try to identify people, and we kind of, you can say that we screen people. I mean, first of all, we have to identify a calling, some local people with a calling, where we sense God's calling, and they may be. I mean, their ministry may be small. It doesn't necessarily have to be big, but we just have to sense God's calling, and then, like on a project manager level, they have to be transparent concerning finances, and of course they have to make a project that we would like to sponsor.
Okay.
And then we try to start small by first going into a small project. If it goes well, then we can move on. Maybe make it bigger next time. So it is how it goes step by step. We always want to work through the local church. We want to strengthen the local church and give the local church tools, so they are stronger and they can share the gospel and be a witness. I mean, sharing God's love, not only in words but also in deed.
Right.
By meeting some needs of people. For instance, I was just in Turkey this spring, and as you know, in February there were some huge earthquakes where 50,000 people got killed. And before the earthquake, we knew local Turkish Christians who had set up an NGO, and they had prepared for earthquakes. Because Turkey is on a regular basis affected by earthquakes. So they had prepared, and just a few hours after, they were in their trucks going to the place. So we knew already these people. We had trust in these people. So immediately we were able to raise funds for this project.
Wow.
And then we went down and visited them, and we are in a close dialogue with them, and they follow up on the work. I was also in the affected areas, which was very special. I mean, not only did 50,000 people die, but the people who survived, maybe they had lost their business because the building where the business was located, if it was a shop, maybe the building didn't stand anymore. So people had lost their livelihood. So it was very challenging to see also to see family members searching in what used to be the house, digging for. I saw a father. He was digging and finding toys of his son, and I could see he was very moved. So I didn't dare to ask him if his son was still alive or not.
Okay.
But in that situation, the local church can reach out. Of course, they will never take advantage of the situation to start preaching to people that are in such a need, but they can give people what they need. They can give them food, maybe a tent to stay. They also have some sanitary wagons. They can have a shower. They can wash their clothes. They can go to the toilet. But people will know that the help comes from the church. So sometime, and I mean, Jesus, he's the ultimate hope. I mean, God is love, and no matter how dark it is, he can bring hope into a situation that is very dark. So they demonstrate God's love. They demonstrate God's power in a tangible way by giving food. And then if people are interested in knowing more about the church, then they can come and ask questions and get to know more. But this is how we work, and I think in a context context with persecution and discrimination, where even the government or groups in civil society can be very hostile towards Christians, then this approach is very good, because it reduces the skepticism that can be found in such places when the society see, hey, Christians are not some agents of the West. They are not agents of a FBI. They are actually meeting needs, some very desperate needs in our country or the situation we are now. And that can create a platform for the church. So they will be heard, and they will be not seen as some people who are very dangerous, but as some that contributes in a very positive way to the society. And then, I mean, if people are interested, then they can come and get to know more about the Christian faith and about the Bible.
Okay, go for it. Okay, I'll just ask this and then you can answer. Because Samuel, you are a CEO, so I imagine that you stay most of your time or a lot of your time behind a desk. What does it do to you? And how does it, how do you come back to work, or what's your mindset after being on site like this and seeing real suffering, seeing a father looking for toys on their scrambles, maybe looking for his son, or remember, like, what does it do to you as someone who stays behind the desk for a long time? What do you bring back home?
It's a very interesting question you ask. Because sometimes when a disaster happens, it can be an earthquake in Turkey. It can be a situation of war or conflict. Then you can tempt to ask the question, why? Why did this happen? And you just sit, and especially we that watch at a distance, we that get the information from the media, we understand the situation in a different way.
Okay.
Actually, you have a different perception. There's a different perception you get from the media than the perception you get when you are on site. And I actually think only getting your information from the media is actually can be more challenging, because it can create a sense of fear. Oh, now this war is going on. There's this earthquake, and you can be anxious, or you can get a sense of fear. But then instead of asking why, then going to the place yourself, working with locals, empowering locals, and then asking, what can we do?
All right.
And especially, what can the church do? How can we be a blessing? How can we bring God's love to people that suffer? Because God loves people. God loves people who suffer, who have lost their houses, who, his heart, he wants to, he loves them and wants the best for them. And then the church can be his arms and be his feet and demonstrate his love. So I actually think this is a very good way of dealing with the difficult things that are going on in this world, by actually being in the midst of it and doing something. And of course, it is, you can be part of this, both working from your desk and also by going to the field. It's like both things are needed.
Right.
So connecting on that, because in our podcast we try to, or it is one of our missions to encourage young people to do something for the kingdom, right? And what you're doing, it's very inspiring. So what would you say to, like, you, but younger? Like, would you encourage yourself to pursue what you're doing right now? Or if you speak to just somebody else, just in younger, what would you say to younger people to maybe encourage them to also do something like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's also connected to my own story, because I was going through this time of doubt and questioning God, and I've already explained one of the ways that I got out of this, and that was through my studies. But another way, that was actually missions. And there was a mission conference once in my hometown, and I attended it. It was just for like 2 or 3 days. And it was life-changing for me, because God had already sown some seeds in my life at this Bible school I attended at the age of 18, 19. And then I was on my journey, and then I was in this situation of doubt. and questioning. But this, on my way back to God, something that really propelled this, my coming back to God, it was God's call for missions. It was something that grabbed me.
Right.
A purpose. There was a destiny for my life. So that call, God's call, really grabbed me. I remember at this mission conference, there was an altar call. So I went forth. I bowed my knees, and I recommitted myself to God, and that was life-changing. So. And I think that's, of course, the most important life, and that's also for young people. I mean, young people need to surrender to God, to give their lives wholeheartedly to God. Say, God, you're the boss. I'm not the boss. God should have His way, and I don't know how it may look like. For some people, it may having not necessarily mean that they will work in a church or in a work with missions. But I mean, you can serve God in many ways. But the most important thing is that you ask God, what is your will? What is your will for my life? Because that is the absolutely that is the best place to be.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So there's a question that I've been having in the back of my mind about like how is that process from accountant for this organization that you joined to becoming the CEO. What did the process look like?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I not only did I do bookkeeping for 4 months, but I criticized some things, and the leadership were very well aware of the need. So they said, and they knew that there was a need for instance, to update the website on a more regular basis, and also there were other tasks that they actually had wanted someone to do for some years, and then I came and I had the qualifications. So I was employed for 1 year, 30 hours every week, or sometimes more. And then, thank God, it went well. And then at the end of this year, I was offered a permanent job.
At the end of this year? Like
No.
Okay.
Yeah. I started in 2008.
Okay.
In September 1st, 2008, and worked 4 months as a bookkeeper. Then in 2009, I worked for 1 year. And then at the end of 2009, I was offered a permanent job.
Oh, that's amazing.
In what position?
I worked with communications and with projects. So, I started our journey on Facebook.
All right. And
how can somebody, so how does the process look like when somebody actually is interested in like, hey, I believe there is a need here? Are they going to then contact you and then you are together going to create a project? Or are they supposed to already come up with some kind of a proposal? Or how does it work, this whole situation?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question you're asking.
Thank you.
And every partnership, and when I say partnership, I mean our partnership with local churches or local Christians that are reaching out somehow. All partnerships have their own story.
Mm-hmm.
And what's so funny about the Danish European mission is that we don't have a formula.
Okay.
For how projects are made. And it may look very coincidental sometimes.
Okay.
How partnership start.
Is that on purpose?
And then when we look in hindsight, maybe it was God.
Yeah. My next question, or I wanted to ask, like, how much are you depending on Holy Spirit in this? But now I hear that it's actually quite a lot because you are
definitely.
meeting people.
Not only me. I would also. We were founded in '64, and I would also like to honor. Many people have worked with the Danish European Mission, and I think that you can say that I'm very thankful to God that the mission has always been very faithful to God's calling, and very faithful in sticking to God's call to reaching the lost, to share the gospel, and the mission has not deviated from that call. And I don't take that lightly and take it for granted. So I want to honor the employees and the leaders that served in the mission, like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and also just a few years back. And of course, our mission has gone through all organizations through difficult times once in a while, but there has always been a prayer that the Holy Spirit would lead and God's will would take place. Not our will, but that God would lead. I think that has been the heart's cry of the staff members. So it's an honor, and I think that the Holy Spirit has really had His way in many ways. And looking back, we can see so many miracles and signs that God has used us, that we have got testimonies that we were right on spot, right on time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So we give all the honor to God. We are just we are grateful to be able to be a part of this.
Yeah. Perfect.
There's another question that was that was in the back pocket, and it was when you said that you choose people based on their calling, like if you feel like they have a calling for that specific thing or that specific area or so on. How do you guys have a process to identify that, or like how is it that it works that you identify that, okay, this person actually has a calling? And it doesn't matter how small or how big they are in that area. Like how do you guys come to that conclusion? There's okay, there is something here, and this person has a calling for this.
I think of course, we have something in paper. We have a strategy and have written some steps concerning projects and partners, some criteria they have to fulfill. But basically, everything comes down to prayer.
Prayer.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Because you can have an organization or church that would apply for funds from us and want to work with us, and on paper everything may look right.
Yeah.
But for us, that is not it. I mean, we prayerfully consider, and we in prayer we ask God, what is your plan? And then sometimes also we go slowly about things, and if we don't feel a confirmation that this is the right thing, then we will not do it. And of course, we are a group of people. There's also the board, and they are involved in this process, and they are also traveling to the countries where we work, so they can meet people, and they can also have a sense about what we are doing, and are we on the right track, or should we work more here or less here, and adjust to how we feel what is right. But I will say that we are not that everything comes down to prayer.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so interesting.
Is it hard to motivate people to donate for this cause? How much of your energy actually goes to, raising the money?
Yeah, we try to. Actually, in recent years, I have pursued an anti-organizational approach.
What does that mean?
That is that, organizations, they will typically fundraise. Mm-hmm. They will, and I think that organizations actually, they are becoming boring. Because when sometimes, or maybe when young people, when they see an organization, whether secular or Christian, they just want my money. You see a mobile pay number, or you see maybe on the front of their, like in many places you will be told how to give. And we should not end up being in that place where mission is reduced to just being reduced to organizations asking for money. Uh-huh. I think it's a very bad place. It should be a calling. They should be motivated by a higher cause, something that is greater than ourselves. Uh-huh. So if people can catch a vision about something big, like helping Christians that suffer and helping them reach out and show God's love, it's much bigger. And then one of the ways they can be involved, that is by giving. But prayer is just as important. And also other ways they can be engaged in our work. They can read. We also arrange some tours. For instance, just next month, there's a tour coming up where 20 people are going. It's both young people and old people. And it's the youngest one is 18. I don't know, or 19, and the oldest is 80. So it's a group going, and they are going to Tajikistan.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Right. I want to ask you, like, if there is any throughout this journey with this organization, but also as an important, as you feel an important position, is there any story or any highlight from this time that is like really touched you somehow, or some project that you were part of and so on, anything that was like, oh wow, this was really special?
That's a difficult question. Mm-hmm. A difficult question. There are so many things that are special.
Makes sense.
I think it's difficult to
pick one.
Yeah, I can also put it that way, that I'm not a specialist. Mm-hmm. I'm good at many things. Mm-hmm. I'm not necessarily a specialist in these various tasks that I work with, but I'm quite. But I have to be good at many things, and in that way, it's when an organization is small, you don't have the finances to employ a specialist that only work with one area. Mm-hmm. It's good to be able to cover different areas. So I can be excited about many things. I could point to, if it was concerning leading staff, there would be some moments that are where I'm very thankful when it comes to projects, or when it comes to traveling, or comes to writing in our magazine. Or so I could point to so many. I mean, we are a supermarket, so there are many things that I could point to that are special. So I think it's more like the whole package.
The whole package.
Perfect. Cool. Do you have any more questions, Kim?
No.
I'm also. It was very interesting conversation. Thank you very much for coming to us. I'm definitely being inspired after this, because, to be honest, also part of this podcast, we somehow also want to maybe, like, it's nothing concrete yet, but we are thinking about how can we build a community around this podcast that would actually want to do some kind of a support to people that are serving. And because I am from Eastern Europe, and it is true that I know some people that that are serving full time, but not always making enough money to handle their life. So sometimes they need to do, different things just to be able to make living. And that would be one of our, I believe it's one of our goals, to be able to donate something once we will actually be able to make something out of this podcast, or if people would want to contribute. But so this was very inspiring for me. Thank you very much for coming.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
And we will definitely leave the links for your organization and contacts for the organization if people would want to, be part of your missions and see the dream and support the dream, either through prayer or through money or however else there is. And with that, I would say thank you very much for listening, and we will come again at some point soon.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Grow your brand with digital ad campaigns and social media content. We are a creative team that specializes on video communication, brand strategy, and productions. Sign up for a free business checkup meeting and speak to us for valuable advice and for the opportunity to partner with us.